back up, make sure I'm getting all this in the right order. All right, so the first thing we got is what we're going to call macromolecules. Scratch that. Let's back up. Let's call them organic macromolecules. So when we hear the word organic, what do we think? Hippie food? Expensive stuff at the grocery store? Okay. So listen, when we hear the word organic in here, you need to automatically associate it with the element carbon. Associate with the element carbon. So to us, organic is going to mean carbon. So macromolecules, let's break that word down. Macro literally means giant. And then molecules, it literally means giant macromolecules. So the organic macromolecules is telling us these are giant molecules that contain carbon. Okay, so macromolecules are what we call polymers. Made of long chains of monomers. So this is the chain. The monomer is the building block. Okay, so the monomer is the building block, the polymer is the chain. So let's give a couple of examples of this. So the best example I can think of for a polymer versus a monomer, think of a polymer as a train. Okay, so what would the monomer be? What's the building block of a train, guys? So a monomer of a train would be one car. Okay, let me give you another example. I want to see if you can think of one on your own. So think of like a Lego castle. So what's the monomer? One block. Because it's the building block. It's what it's made out of, right? I know that. So the macromolecule is made of a whole bunch of different building blocks. Do what? Okay. So would one apartment be a monomer or a polymer?
Oh, monomer.
Okay. One apartment. Okay. Okay, so the apartment complex would be the polymer, right? Yeah, but a salad's not really stuck together. All right, look around here. What's the walls made out of? So what's the brick, a polymer or a monomer? So one brick and a brick. So y'all understand, y'all get the concept of that? Okay, so polymers and monomers. So we've got 4 macromolecules that we're going to talk about. 4 categories of macromolecules. And we're only going to focus on one of them today. So, and the order that we give them to you in is very important. So the first one, carbohydrates. Second one, which is tomorrow, will be lipids, proteins, and then nucleic acids. Okay, so those are the 4 categories of macromolecules that we're going to have to go over. So all of them are basically related in the fact that you've got the polymer-monomer relationship going on. Now, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Let's back up to polymers versus monomers. So how does a polymer form? I'll come back. Okay, so monomer plus monomer is going to yield a polymer plus, okay? So it's going to be a polymer plus a water molecule. So what happens is, let me draw it out real quick. Say I've got a monosaccharide plus another monosaccharide is going to yield okay, but what happens is when this bond right here forms, yes, a molecule of water is going to come out. Now, this process is called, anybody know? Dehydration synthesis. Right, because anytime a bond forms, one water molecule is going to be released. So a hydrogen atom off of one and an OH off of the other one are going to come together, be released. Okay, another name for that is called a condensation reaction. It's also called condensation. So Chandler or Amari, do me a favor. So let's say, y'all stand up. Let's pretend Chandler and Amari are monosaccharides. Stand up. And they're going to bond together. So hold your hands. Y'all stick your hands out. Hold hands. No homo. No homo. Okay, so when they formed that bond, a water molecule came out. All right, Mia, come here. No, you're not done. Okay, bond back together. Okay, so now Mia's going to come in. She's going to bond. How many water molecules have I made now? 2. Every place you have a bond is where a water molecule is going to be formed. Does that make sense? Cool. Y'all can sit down. All right, so now, if that's coming together, the opposite is called hydrolysis. Hydro meaning what? Lysis means to break. So it's just the opposite. So to break the bond, you add back what?
Water.
Yep. Add water molecule to break the bond. Okay, that's an important concept that we got to know going forward. And this is for every macromolecule known. Sloan, leave her alone. Okay? For every macromolecule known. So this is proteins, nucleic acids, carbohydrates, and lipids. They all bond and break apart the same way. All right, so let's go back to our 4 that we're talking about. Okay, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. So today we're going to focus on carbohydrates. Carbohydrates. So the elements found in them are carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. Hydrogen to oxygen ratio equals 2 to 1. It's a comma. Or right here. In the red or the black? The what? Carbohydrates? It's the word carbohydrates.
Oh, I think he's talking about the
Okay, so when you hear the word carbohydrates, though, the basic formula for this, in its simplest form, would be carbon, H2O. Hey, look at the name. Carbo for carbon, and then hydrate. When you hydrate something, what do you add to it? Water. So in its simplest form, it's literally carbon plus a water molecule. Literally carbon plus a water molecule. All right, so that's the elements found in carbohydrates. The monomer, okay, and what's another name for a monomer? The building block. Is what we call a monosaccharide. A monosaccharide. Can I go up to right here? Okay. There are 3 categories of carbs. 3 categories of carbs we're going to talk about. So the first one, monosaccharides. The second one, disaccharides. And then last but not least, polysaccharides. Now I'm going to give you examples of all of these, but we got to hurry. Okay, so let's start with monosaccharides. Okay, so monosaccharide, like we said, is the building block. This is a single sugar molecule. Single sugar. Oh, one other thing we need to add. Anytime you see the suffix OSE, that equals sugar. Okay, so the function of monosaccharides is short-term energy. Short-term energy. So let's list a few. So you've got glucose, you have fructose, galactose. Now all of these are interesting in that they all have the same chemical formula. Which is C6H12O what? 6, because if we're following our pattern, you have to have twice as many hydrogen as you do what? Oxygen. So that 12 to 6. Now, the fact that they have the same chemical formula, but they have a different, I promise that's different. E-R-E-N-T. They have different structures. Okay? So they have the same chemical formula, but they're just put together a little differently. So if we would imagine that carbon was a black Lego, and hydrogen's a red Lego, and oxygen's a blue Lego, and I gave everybody in here 6 black, 12 red, and 6 blue Legos, and said, have fun. Are you all going to put them together in a different order? Probably. Are all the parts and pieces there though? Would everybody have the same number of each color? Yes, and so that's what is called an isomer. They're called isomers of each other. So they have the same chemical formula, but they have a different chemical structure. They're just put together a little different. Those are called isomers of each other. One more thing about these 3. These are what we call hexose sugars. Hexose sugars. Now, there's os. Okay? So what does hexose mean, you think? What does the prefix hex mean? 6, right? Well, what do we have 6 of in the formula? No. Look at the formula. Yes, 6 carbon. Very good. So hexose means they are 6 carbon sugars. That means it's a sugar that has 6 carbons in it. Say that again? Because you got to have 2 to 1 hydrogen to oxygen, right? Yeah. So that's why. All right. Let me give you a couple more examples. So the function of those is what? To give us energy. So when you drink Gatorade or you get that sugar high, that's what. Okay, where do we find fructose? Where have we heard fructose before?
It's in that yogurt.
High fructose corn syrup. Okay, it's a sweetener. All right, let me give you 2 other examples of monosaccharides, and we got to get to the disaccharides. Okay, you could also have ribose or deoxyribose. Very good. So this is the sugar in RNA. This is the sugar in DNA. Okay, and so those are structural carbohydrates. Structural carbs. But what's special about these? Both of these are 5 carbon, or what we would call pentose sugars. Okay, these are pentose because they have how many carbons in them? 5. Okay, so we have 5 total monosaccharides that you need to know. Glucose, fructose, and galactose, which are the what type? How many carbons do they have? 6. Where ribose and deoxyribose have 5. All right, can we go to the disaccharides? We got to hustle. Okay, disaccharides. That's a D. All right, disaccharides. So these are double sugars. Double sugars, and there's 3 of them. We have sucrose, which is what we call table sugar. You go to the grocery store, you buy a 5-pound bag of sugar, you're buying 5 pounds of sucrose. You have lactose. Where do we find lactose in? Milk. We'll get to lactose intolerance. And then we have maltose. Amari, why are you not writing this down?
I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's talk about what makes each of these. So the formula for these is going to be, let's see. So all 3 of these have the same formula, C12H22O what? If it's 2 to 1, what's half of 22? 11. Why would it not be H24O12?
You got 22 hydrogen.
Okay, because look, let me draw how we bonded it. So let's say we've got this one bonded to this one. What do we know has to come out in order for that bond to form? Water. So if we added them together, it'd be C6H12O6 plus C6H12O6 minus 1 molecule of water is going to yield C12H. 12 plus 12 is 24 minus how many? 2. So H22, and then O, you got 6 plus 6 is what? 12 minus 1 is O11. That's how you get that. All right, so let's talk about what makes these up. Yeah, I'm sorry. So sucrose, what two molecules make up sucrose? Sucrose is a glucose plus fructose. Okay? Lactose is glucose plus galactose. Maltose is it's going to be the hardest name to remember, but it's the easiest one to remember what makes it up because it's just glucose plus glucose. So what do we notice all three of these have in common? It's glucose plus something. Good. It's glucose plus something. Very good. Now listen, you can see down at the bottom, I'm recording this as I'm writing it and talking it. I will try to post this to YouTube this afternoon. So this entire lecture will be on YouTube. So you can go back and watch it. All right? Everybody got that? So let's talk about polysaccharides real quick because we gotta go. All right, so tell me what polysaccharide means. A lot, or let's say many sugars. Okay, many sugar molecules. Now, there are two categories of polysaccharides we're going to talk about. Okay, you got short-term energy storage. And then we have structure. All right, so let's talk about the energy ones first. Okay, so in a plant, when a plant makes more sugar than it needs, it's going to store it, and it stores it in a molecule called starch. Okay, so this is energy storage in plants. Okay, so what are some examples of starchy plants?
I don't know. Grain,
Potato,
vegetables,
not vegetables, corn, rice, wheat. Okay, all of these things that we consider to be starchy foods, they have a lot of energy stored up in them. All right, in animals, it's called glycogen. So it's energy storage.
and plant. Right?
That's energy storage in animals.
Oh, and my fault.
So when your body takes in more glucose than what it can use, no, it turns it into glycogen. And then if it has too much glycogen buildup, then it converts it to fat. Okay, so glycogen, let's say that you're a runner. You run like cross country or you run like marathons, stuff like that. You eat a lot of pasta the night before, and what your body does is what glucose it doesn't use, it's going to store up in glycogen. Think of it as like the reserve tank on a four-wheeler or a boat or something like that. So when the main tank runs out, you can switch over to that reserve tank and you've got energy to get you through, okay? Like planes, like airplanes back in like World War II, like old fighter planes, they would have what are called drop tanks. It'd be like an extra fuel tank attached to the bottom of the plane or the wings. And so they would run off of the drop tanks until they ran out, and then they would just drop them like a bomb, and they were empty. No. I mean, if it hits you, I'm sure. But, so they drop those, and then they switch over to the main tank. That's what glycogen does for you. All right, and then the storage ones, I'm sorry, not storage. Okay, the structural ones, there's 3 of them we need to talk about. The first one is called cellulose. Cellulose. This makes up the cell wall.
Animal cells?
Do animal cells have cell walls?
No, I mean plant cells.
Plants. Okay. So when you eat vegetables, if you eat like lettuce or celery or something like that, that crunch, that's the cell walls that you're eating. This is also referred to as dietary fiber. Dietary fiber. Because what does your body do when you get a lot of fiber in your diet? It makes you go what? Yeah, it makes you go poop. Because your body can't digest cellulose. And so what does your body do to things that it can't digest? It just pushes it out the system. And it's why cats and dogs eat grass. So when their stomach's upset, it just helps push everything out that's causing their stomach to be upset. 2 more. Anybody want to take a stab at pronouncing that word? Chitin. Chitin. Okay, chitin. This is the cell wall of fungi. And it's also the exoskeleton of arthropods. So, like, things like lobsters, crabs, insects, crawfish, basically, if you step on it, it has jointed appendages. You step on it and it goes crunch. That exoskeleton is made out of chitin, and it's a carbohydrate. Yes. Oh, I heard. So listen, guys. Crap, where was I going with that? I forgot. All right, so chitin. And then last but not least, one of my favorite science words. Peptidoglycan. Peptidoglycan. So this is the cell walls of bacteria. This is what makes up the cell wall of bacteria. Okay? So you have 5 polysaccharides you're going to have to know. Okay? Starch and glycogen, which are energy storage. Which one's in plants? Starch or glycogen? Starch. Glycogen is the animal cell energy storage. Then you have cellulose, chitin, and peptidoglycan, which make up the cell walls. They're structural. So which one is plants? Cellulose. Which one is fungi? Chitin. I heard somebody call it chitin one time because they said it looks like the word chitlin, and fungus is like mushrooms are gross and chitlins are gross, and that's how they remembered it.
You know, I remember this game I played called Archie Whiteboard. We kill an arthropod.
Yes. Okay, and then the last one, peptidoglycan, is the cell wall of bacteria. Whoops. All right, let's move back up. So polysaccharides were many. Disaccharides, you had 3 examples. Sucrose, lactose, maltose. And you need to know what makes each one. Okay, and then you had 5 examples of monosaccharides. 3 were hexose, 2 were pentose. Make sure you look over this tonight. Make sure you look over the Quizlet vocab. We may do a quick Quizlet live in the morning or tomorrow afternoon. I would expect a quiz on the vocab and the notes from today tomorrow. Any questions?